I knew my husband was cheating. I was aching from inside and my mother thought I was sick. I knew he was cheating. Not because someone told me, not because I caught him in the act. I knew because something inside me shifted, like my body recognized the truth before my heart was ready to face it. I didn't confront him. I didn't ask questions. I didn't accuse. I just sat with the knowing and let it settle into places it didn't belong. Instead, I went quiet. Not all at once, but slowly, day by day. I stopped reacting to things that used to get a response from me. Jokes didn't land. Arguments didn't start. Compliments didn't register. I started eating less without meaning to, pushing food around my plate until it felt easier to say I wasn't hungry than to explain the tight feeling in my chest. I became smaller without realizing it. People noticed before I did. At work, coworkers asked if I was okay, if I was tired, if I needed time off. Friends sent texts I didn't answer right away. I smiled when I had to, but it felt practiced, like something I was performing instead of feeling. The more silent I became, the more concerned everyone else grew, especially my mother. My mom watched me closely. She noticed the weight loss, the dark circles, the way I stared at nothing for long stretches of time. She started asking about my health. She asked if I felt weak, if I was dizzy, if I was sleeping enough. She asked if I needed blood work done, if I'd talked to a doctor. She was convinced something was wrong with my body, and I didn't correct her. She thought I was sick, and I let her believe it. Because being physically unwell felt easier to explain than being emotionally shattered. It felt safer to be someone whose body was failing than someone whose marriage was. I watched her worry and felt guilty, but not enough to tell the truth. The truth felt too heavy to place on anyone else. What she didn't know was that while I looked absent, I was watching everything. I noticed patterns, I noticed the timing. I noticed the way my husband guarded his phone like it carried something fragile. I noticed how his mood lifted after certain messages and dropped when I walked into the room. I memorized the lies without reacting to them. And somewhere along the way, he started watching me too. He noticed my silence, the way I didn't ask questions anymore, the way my eyes lingered longer than they used to. He felt it before I ever said a word. By the time he realized I knew, panic had already set in. I didn't have to accuse him. My quiet had already exposed everything. We live in Alabama, in a place that feels familiar and grounded. We got married 3 years ago, surrounded by people who believed we were solid. The kind of couple that made sense together. We both work full-time jobs, wake up early, come home tired, and talk about plans we swear we'll follow through on someday. We don't have kids yet. It was always something we said we'd wait on until life felt a little more settled. From the outside, our life looked normal, comfortable, even. Weekend errands, shared dinners, conversations about the future that felt safe because they were familiar. We weren't dramatic. We weren't chaotic. I thought stability meant security. I thought routine meant loyalty. I believed the quiet parts of our marriage were proof that we were strong. I loved him deeply. That didn't stop when I found out. If anything, it made everything more complicated. Love doesn't disappear just because trust cracks. It stays and twists and hurts in ways you don't expect. I still saw the man I married when I looked at him. I still remembered who he was to me before doubt crept in. I had always believed that loving someone meant protecting them, choosing them, even when it hurts. I told myself that confronting him would force him into a decision I wasn't ready to hear. Stay or go, lie or confess. I didn't want to corner him into choosing something that might end us. I wasn't strong enough for that kind of answer, so I stayed quiet and convinced myself it was the right thing to do. I told myself silence was patience, that waiting was love, that if I gave him enough space, things might correct themselves. Deep down, I was scared. Scared of losing him, scared of breaking the life we built, and scared that once the truth was spoken out loud, there would be no way to take it back. The signs didn't hit me all at once. They slipped in quietly, almost politely, like they didn't want to be noticed. A late night that didn't make sense, an explanation that felt rushed, his phone always turned face down, always just out of reach. Notifications that stopped appearing when I was nearby. Smiles that felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. I wanted to believe that trust meant not questioning every change. But the pattern kept repeating, and slowly, doubt turned into certainty. He was there, but not fully present. Engaged, but distracted. It felt like sharing space with someone whose heart was already somewhere else. I didn't react the way people expect you to. I didn't cry into pillows or scream in the shower. I didn't demand answers or check his phone when he wasn't looking. I swallowed everything I felt and pressed it down, convincing myself that staying calm meant staying in control. I thought silence would protect me from falling apart. That's when my body started responding to me. My appetite disappeared without warning. Food lost its taste. Sleep became shallow and restless. My shoulders stayed tense, my chest heavy, like I was holding my breath all the time. I couldn't explain what was wrong, but my body knew. It carried the truth I refused to speak, and it showed up in every quiet moment. My mother noticed before anyone else did. Not because I told her, and not because I wanted her to. She noticed because she knew me too well to miss the small changes. She saw the way food stayed untouched on my plate. She noticed how my laughter disappeared, how my voice sounded flat even when I tried to sound normal. She saw that I wasn't myself anymore, even when I pretended I was. She started hovering in a way that made me uncomfortable, but also strangely safe. She asked questions I avoided answering. She watched my face when I thought she wasn't looking. She paid attention to things other people brushed off. And the more she watched, the more convinced she became that something was wrong with my body. Doctor visits became part of my routine. Blood tests, waiting rooms, paper gowns, and quiet instructions. She sat beside me, holding her purse tight, listening closely to every word the doctors said. When results came back normal, she didn't relax. She just looked more worried. She kept asking what else it could be. She started praying under her breath when she thought I couldn't hear her. She was convinced I was sick. That something unseen was slowly draining me, and I didn't correct her. I let her believe it, even when it hurt to see the fear in her eyes. Because telling her the truth felt crueler than letting her worry about my health. A sickness had answers. A sickness had treatment. What I was carrying didn't. The truth felt heavier than illness. It felt like something that would break her heart if I said it out loud. So I stayed quiet and let her search for a diagnosis that didn't exist. I watched her blame herself, wonder what she missed, and I swallowed my guilt along with my silence. That was the moment I realized my pain wasn't just mine anymore. It had started spilling into the people who loved me most. Living in the same house after that started to feel like a performance. Every day felt rehearsed, like we were both playing roles we didn't believe in anymore. I woke up beside him and pretended nothing was wrong. I listened to him talk about his day, nodded at the right moments, and acted like I wasn't carrying questions that burned holes in my chest. I watched him lie without knowing that I already knew the truth. He told stories that sounded smooth on the surface but cracked when I listened closely. I noticed how careful he was with his words, how he avoided details, how his tone shifted when certain topics came up. He thought he was convincing. I let him believe that. Every time he said, "I love you," it felt staged, like a line he'd practiced enough times to sound real. Every touch felt borrowed, like it belonged to someone else before it reached me. I stopped leaning into him, stopped asking for affection, not because I didn't want it, but because it hurt too much to accept something that felt divided. The more silent I became, the more nervous he grew. He started watching me the way I'd been watching him. He asked if I was okay more often. He looked unsettled when I didn't respond the way I used to. He tried harder some days, pulling me close, acting attentive, like he could fix whatever was slipping through his fingers. But the house felt heavier with every passing day. The walls seemed to hold secrets. Conversations stayed shallow. Nights felt longer. I was exhausted from pretending, from carrying the truth alone, from living beside someone who didn't know how exposed he already was. The fallout wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet and suffocating, and it made me realize how much silence can damage before anyone notices. The shift didn't come from me. I didn't wake up one day feeling brave. I didn't suddenly decide to speak up. The change came from someone who loved me enough to look closer and not accept my excuses. Someone who noticed that my silence wasn't strength, but survival. It happened during a quiet moment, one that didn't feel important at first. A simple question asked without pressure. A pause that lingered a little too long. I tried to brush it off the way I always did, but something about the way they looked at me made it impossible to lie. They didn't accuse me, they didn't push, they just waited. And in that waiting, something inside me cracked. I didn't spill everything at once. I didn't need to. Just enough truth slipped out for them to understand that what I was carrying was heavier than I could manage alone. For the first time since I found out I wasn't alone in what I knew, someone else saw it clearly. Someone else believed me without proof or explanation. That changed everything. The weight shifted. The silence lost some of its power. I realized I didn't have to disappear to protect everyone else. That moment didn't fix my marriage. It didn't solve anything overnight, but it gave me something I hadn't had in months: support, perspective, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing you're no longer carrying the truth by yourself. I never planned a confrontation. I didn't rehearse words in my head or wait for the perfect moment. I didn't set a date or prepare myself emotionally. For a long time, I truly believed it might never happen at all. I thought the truth would stay suspended between us forever, unspoken but understood only by me. But the truth doesn't like staying hidden. It has a way of standing up on its own, even when you're not ready for it. It happened on an ordinary day, in the middle of an ordinary conversation. Nothing dramatic set it off. No shouting. No accusation. Just a pause that lasted a little too long. I looked at him differently without realizing it. My silence wasn't careful anymore. It was calm. And that calm is what changed everything. He realized it before I said anything. I saw it in his face. His eyes shifted, searching mine like he was looking for confirmation he didn't want to find. His shoulders tensed. His voice changed. The fear in his eyes said everything before his mouth could catch up. In that moment, I knew he understood. He knew I wasn't guessing. I wasn't confused. I knew. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse him or list everything I'd noticed. I didn't need to. I wasn't angry the way he expected me to be. I was tired. Tired in a way that stripped the emotion out of my words and left only truth behind. I told him calmly, simply, that I knew what had been going on. There was no denying it after that. No pretending. The silence between us felt heavy, but also honest for the first time in months. I didn't feel relief, and I didn't feel victory. What I felt was clarity. The truth was finally out in the open, and no matter what came next, I knew I had stopped lying to myself. I learned something about love that I never wanted to learn. I learned that loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself piece by piece until there's nothing left. It doesn't mean staying silent while your body carries pain your heart refuses to speak. I thought protecting him was proof of love. I didn't realize how much of myself I was losing in the process. For a long time, I believed silence made me strong. I believed staying quiet showed maturity and patience. But silence has a cost. It chips away at you slowly. It changes how you see yourself. It makes you smaller without asking permission. I didn't notice it happening until I barely recognized the person I'd become. My body tried to warn me when my voice wouldn't. It showed up in the sleepless nights, the loss of appetite, the constant exhaustion. Everyone thought I was sick, and in a way, I was. Just not in the way they understood. My body spoke when my heart was too tired to fight anymore. I wasn't sick, I was hurting. I was carrying betrayal, fear, and love all at once, and none of it had anywhere to go. I learned that protecting someone at the cost of your own well-being isn't noble. It's dangerous. Love should never require you to disappear to survive. What I know now is this: love should feel safe. It should allow space for truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. And if staying quiet means losing yourself, then silence isn't strength. It's a warning, one I wish I had listened to sooner. If you've ever stayed quiet just to keep the peace, you're not alone. If you've ever protected someone else while slowly breaking yourself, you're not weak for that. You were doing the best you could with the love you had. But you deserve to be heard. You deserve to take up space without feeling guilty for it. You deserve honesty that doesn't cost you your health or your identity. Love shouldn't demand your silence to survive. If this story feels familiar, take it as a reminder. You don't have to disappear to keep someone else comfortable. And you don't have to carry the truth alone. If you want more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. It gives me motivation to create more.